So welcome everyone to today's edition of AI Insiders. And if we haven't met, I'm David Berkowitz, the founder of AI Marketers Guild. And I'm really excited about today's guest because I've even asked today's guest if at some point she'd want to co-host these things with me because if you've been to these before, you've probably heard Kate speak as either asking questions or sharing some really insightful takes. And this is one of the things why one of the reasons why I look forward to these community calls so much, because there are people like Kate who I've not known and and have really just gotten to know through this community and am and I'm just always learning something. And so just to come across talent like that and see uh how just like the depth and breadth of what we have in this community and just how much there is to learn from each other. Like this is really the stuff that gets me out of bed in the morning. Some the days with COVID a little harder to get out of bed in the morning as today, and I missed my 9 a.m. call, but still always something to look forward to. So, Kate, I'll let you give yourself a proper introduction and share some thoughts today. Again, like this is always a very participatory call. So, as there are things that you want to ask Kate or dive into deeper here, then looking forward to your input as well. So Kate, take it away, please.
Thanks. Hey everyone. Thanks for getting out of bed, David. I appreciate it. And it's so nice to see some familiar faces on the call. So thanks everyone for joining. I'll give a quick background on me and who I am and why I reached out to David to present today, and really sort of spark a conversation in this community about something I've been thinking about, which is what's going to happen in the future now that we have AI on the scene. But for me, I was a brand marketer for 15 years. Paul and I worked together at A&E Networks a long time ago. I have been in the media industry for 20 years. Last year, I lost my job. And 2 days later, I had an epiphany that this side project hobby I had around exploring AI needed to be my career. I enrolled in a professional certification course with Caltech that was highly intense. And hold on, I'm letting someone else in the room. And learned how to code in Python, practiced calculus again, learned data science foundations, learned machine learning, and really tried to, in the same way that I've been working in the entertainment space for so many years and I can make a television show with my hands tied behind my back, I wanted to understand AI technology to the same foundational level. So I did all of that training, and then I built a consultancy business to really build a bridge between the marketers, whether that's an in-house marketing team or an agency, and the technology, and help to translate, help to build a roadmap for automation, help to digitally innovate companies from the inside out. And really, built under the premise of the big guys are hiring the Accentures and the McKinseys and the Bains to do all of this work for them. The little guys have the ability to be nimble and innovate in even more impressive ways than the big guys, but they need the support too. So how can a small consultancy of technically 3 people now really service that sector? And so that's the shape of the business. And I see a hand raised.
Hey, Kate, it's Faisal. I'm just curious. That's amazing. You mentioned you took this extremely intense technical course at Caltech. Are you from a tech background? I mean, how did you find that? I mean, learning Python, is it that it's quite challenging, I imagine. So it'd be great to just understand your background a little bit more.
I have no technical background whatsoever. And the reason why I took the course, there were a few different ones. There was one at Berkeley, there was one at MIT. And they all, in the registration process, said, oh, don't take this class unless you have some sort of a technical background or an IT background, you're going to be lost. The one at Caltech was a little bit more diverse in terms of who was attending. There were a lot of HR people, academics, sort of a broader landscape. So it was a little more conceptual than it was highly technical, though I did need to learn how to code. Luckily, I took the class in 2023 with the help of ChatGPT, so I was able to pass. So what I wanted to do today is, I love these discussions so much. And I love that this weekly meeting keeps our finger on the pulse of what's happening, where the technology is, what the use cases are, what we're seeing in terms of trends. But I do a lot of thinking about what's going to happen in the future. And sometimes these conversations touch there, but I really felt that it would be so useful for all of us brains to get together and to think about what the world looks like in the coming years, now that AI is on the scene. So what I have is, I have a deck actually that I've been putting together because I plan to go and talk to some friends at a VC firm about where marketers' heads are at around AI technology today. So I have a few slides that kind of lay out the trends that I'm seeing, sort of my vision of from reading and talking to people of what the media landscape could look like. So I will walk through those. And then what I would really love to do is open it up and have a conversation, because there's really no solutions in this deck. And I think the solutions are going to live with all of us in the work that we're doing, in the way that we innovate in a completely novel world. So I'd love to sort of, walk through these slides in about 20 minutes and then open up for discussion, and see where we get. So that said, now I'm going to check back to see if anyone's in the waiting room, David, but
Yeah, and I'll handle the
okay, great.
so you can focus on your talk.
All right. Here's a look into the future. Everybody see it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So as a brand marketer, I feel that I, sort of do my best work when I keep my brand living in the today, but always have an eye to the future, talking to trend forecasters. Those folks are generally looking at cultural trends or trends coming out of the media landscape. What's different about today is that this tech is moving so fast. And it's also changing so much about the world that we live in that it's sort of hard to get your arms really around what's happening. But I've tried. Oh, yes. And this is my business. I just want to quickly tee up what I do and, why sort of conversations like this are valuable to me. Era 7 Partners is the name of my company. The name of that company comes from the fact that there have been 6 eras of human history, and I believe that we're now entering into the 7th era. And, it's whatever you want to call it, the AA age or the synthetic age, but that folks need partners to help guide them through. So we build strategy for marketing teams and agencies. We actually go in, roll up our sleeves, and find tech solutions to problems that they know they have or that they don't know they have yet. Whether that's an off-the-shelf product or a build, working with a dev team. We help them with communication, whether that's internal or external. How do you frame this with your workforce? How do you frame this externally so that you can sort of be at the leading edge of your peer group? And then program management, advisory services, any number of odds and ends that come my way, we sort of tackle them. So because we don't have trend forecasters looking at this stuff, I went to the first source, which is the people looking at the money. Usually when you follow the money, you can see what's happening. So Forbes has top 10 AI predictions for the year 2030. I picked 3 that I thought were relevant for this conversation just to set the stage. One is ubiquitous AI interaction, meaning that this technology becomes so interwoven into your daily life that it just sort of is constantly there. And I do believe that there are signals of that happening already. And so this one is one that I think is really critical to look at. And the other 2 are sort of just to kind of reframe where we're going to be in another 6 years, 5, 6 years. you know, these terms AGI, artificial general intelligence, even AI, artificial intelligence, agents, they're going to sort of become obsolete and outdated as the technology evolves. This group may not be called AI Marketers Guild anymore, because AI is just going to be everything, right? It's the operating system of the future world. So it won't be specific enough. We'll probably be our own new thing. And then, you know, and I think NVIDIA's been up and down, but I think it's a really good thing to watch the chip maker that powers all of this as a signal for the future. They right now have the market totally cornered, which is why they have, you know, just skyrocketed and been this amazing success story up and down, but overall just incredible success story in the markets. Their market cap will decrease because other tech players will be able to develop the technology in the chip manufacturing that will be able to operate AI systems at scale. So there will be multiple players instead of one, which means that there will be so much opportunity for this technology to be literally ubiquitous, as the first bullet point says. But I think, to sort of boil it down, when you look at the market, then where's the technology headed because of that, right? So where we are right now is early days, and anyone in the tech sector will tell you this is very early in terms of where this technology will go. One of the things that is pretty near term and going to hopefully take off, because it will solve a lot of problems that I have in my business, is agents. Is technologies having the AI technology having agentic capabilities. So not what flight should I take to Las Vegas, but book me a flight to Las Vegas, and that it would know your preferences, it would know what seat you like, it would know that you fly Delta and that you have a rewards account, and you know, it knows what hotel you like to stay in Las Vegas, and it knows everything. It just does it for you, so you don't have to do that day. Another thing which is happening now at OpenAI, and Google's also testing it, but will come on the scene pretty hardcore, is multimodal. So that's what, you know, you can talk to ChatGPT now. I do it sometimes when I'm driving or when I'm parenting, but you know, the fact that these technologies can see, hear, and speak in the world around you means two things. One, that they are gathering data from your life. And two, that data that they're gathering from your life is becoming part of their training data. So they are evolving in real time in the world alongside of us people, which has so many implications. I can't get into it, but it just makes you think. Number three is adoption. So you see all these different stats about how many people are using AI on a daily basis. How many people even know what ChatGPT is? There's a lot of different stuff going on there, but the, you know, sort of hockey stick is pointing up and to the right. And people will continue to adopt this technology until it is pretty much ubiquitous. And then, you know, right now we're at artificial intelligence. The next step is artificial general intelligence, which means it will be as smart as a person at most things. Right now, it can be as smart as a person in some things, but not in most things, right? And so that's, you know, there's lots of definitions for it, but artificial general intelligence means it's smart as us in most things. Super intelligence means it's way smarter than us. And it, you know, people have different thoughts about whether we will or are capable to get there with large language models, with diffusion models, with the tools that we have today. But I think from my POV, and I want to hear from the group, I think we're going there. So one thing that will definitely happen, that is happening now because of all of those four pieces, is that the internet, as we know it today, will be disrupted. If you look at the things that we do on the internet today, some of them will remain the same. Like this girl who's staring at her phone in the middle of the night. That's me, actually, because I'm doing that too. You know, we probably will be using it for entertainment, you know, looking at pictures, videos, engaging in a digital way, but we definitely won't be opening our Gmail and reading our emails because a bot's going to be doing that for us, summarizing it and telling us what we need to do, or even responding for us, right? Social media, what happens there? It still exists? It's a track that we have, but there's also there's synthetic experiences that maybe people start to really become attached to. So it's interesting to kind of look at where we are today in terms of device usage, in terms of what types of media are prevalent in our society, and think about what they could look like in the future. Oops. But here's some things that I believe are going to happen. And here's where I'd love to sort of run through these and then have a discussion. So traditional search is probably going to erode. People are already saying that Google search is kind of underperforming. And I think where this happens and where it disrupts the advertising space is that instead of me going to Google, looking for something, clicking on a link, landing on a publisher's website and seeing advertising there, all of that is filtered through my agent to me. So the eyeballs on digital advertising inventory will not be there to the same degree that they are today. And I think that it's really important for us to embrace this, because it means that the advertising space is going to radically reinvent. I personally think things like entertainment are going to stay, because when you watch something and you see an ad, that's kind of an experience. You can't have your bot summarize entertainment to you. It's not very entertaining. But when you're searching for information, that's a place where the ease of having AI perform that task for you is so attractive that the advertising that lives in that space may go away. Also, the emergence of marketing to bots. So right now we market to consumers as marketers, and we market to each other as marketers. But, you know, I think there's going to emerge a practice that lives inside of every marketing operation that is trying to feed the bots. What could that look like? Could that look like a shadow internet that's crawlable by AI systems, that has the right sort of tags or keywords or code embedded in it to make your brand rise to the top? I don't know. I'm not sure anybody knows, but I'm pretty sure this is going to start to happen. We did talk about the disruption of digital and programmatic advertising as AI's intermediaries between you and the entire digital world. And I think another thing to point out here is that this will also destabilize the consumer data that we have, because when you have a big fluctuation between, you know, what we understand the user base is, and then a whole entire segment of that user base leaves that traditional channel and goes through an AI system to access their information, they fall out of the data set that a publisher would have, for example, or an advertiser would have. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of cracks in the traditional system in terms of being able to target. Oops. Okay, this is really cool. This is called share of model. This is a new idea. It was actually coined by Jellyfish, which is an agency as part of Brand Tech Group. And it's a new metric like share of voice to understand how well your brand is surfacing within the bot's responses. And I think that this will continue to become a coined phrase that people refer to. So they analyze the outputs of the responses of large language models when asked about your brand's area. So let's say you're a shampoo brand, they'll start asking about shampoo and wait and see how long it takes the bot to surface you versus anyone else. And then we have to figure out how to get it to surface you more frequently and with better results, more clear results, more favorable results, whatever that is. So Jellyfish is actually building a model, a proprietary model to track this for brands. And I'd love to, invite them into this conversation as well eventually to sort of talk to us about what that looks like when it's ready to go to market. But I think this is fascinating, and it just is another echo of the fact that there's an entirely new ecosystem being created here that marketers are going to have to address. Okay. So there's also some need for us to, as marketers, as the keepers of the audience data, as to really think about how bias feeds into these systems. And I know we've talked about that somewhat in these meetings. I think it's a topic that is prevalent now, but will continue to gain traction in conversation. Because the thing is that inherently AI models have been trained on biased data. And that's just because bias lives in the world. And the data sets that they had available to them to train these models were not representative of the entire world. They were data sets that were available to them. So they did the best they could with what they had, but I think it will be really important to increase access to this technology because of that multimodality, that seeing, hearing, and speaking in the world around you, so that the reflections of ourselves that we are giving AI models are reflective and representational of our societies. And I think also privacy, it was a really big issue as well. It's stunning to me how many rooms I go into with very senior marketers that they are not aware that they should not put sensitive data into ChatGPT. I think there is a huge awareness gap here in business about what these models are doing with your data and how to protect your data and how to be safe. And so part of the work that we do is to help companies unpack that and then build a policy that can both make sure that their data or their customers' data is protected, that their employees know what the rules of the road are so that they don't, leak data out into the AI models so that it enters their training set. But that also gives everyone, rules of the road so that they can experiment knowing that they're not messing anything up. And I think, it's pretty critical that we increase awareness about this, because so if you've heard about the lawsuit between New York Times and OpenAI, that's exactly what it's about, right? They were able to get ChatGPT to surface them whole articles from behind their paywall that they had never provided OpenAI to train on. And I think that a lot of things that we put into these bots could be spit back out to the wrong person at the wrong time if we're not careful about what we do. So that's a lot. And so it's kind of like, what in the hell are we supposed to do about this, right? It's impossible for any one person to wrap their arms around what this could eventually look like to begin with, let alone have ideas about what to do. I love this picture because I feel like this looks like you, David, in the corner going, what the fuck? And I feel like this pretty much every day. So this really spoke to me. So I will talk about what I tell people, but then I want to open it up and hear thoughts from the group. So I talk about that marketers must write their tomorrow strategy, right? That thinking ahead is the only way to stay up with the pack. A couple important things here. One, start with what's relevant to your business and build from there. So I like to show this slide that has all of the AI companies in 2024 on one slide. It kind of looks like the MarTech slide, right? It's like just a complete eyesore. And I like to say, if you were to throw a dart at this chart and pick an AI company and experiment or do a test with them, pick a use case, you're barely scratching the surface. And you also are just sort of not even aware of all the different verticals that you could be attacking within your business, or applying an AI automation strategy, or thinking through a new process, right? And so I talk about, building that strategy from within, looking at the use cases that would make the most sense for your business, starting there and building a roadmap into the future. Another one is to embrace the synthetic marketing experience. So a lot of times we talk about content and how can we create content with AI, and that's a really important space that is evolving very quickly. I also think that there is, if you've ever created or received a pitch deck for a campaign, and there's that one like kooky out of the box idea at the back that is super fun and super innovative, but super complicated because it's digital and it never gets made, because everybody's like, no, that's too confusing and we'd have to involve all these people. Let's just do the thing we usually do. Those marketing experiences are now much more possible because of AI. You can build your own chatbot in a few weeks, right? With low amount of money and one person. So I think that marketers need to stop thinking that the traditional channels and the traditional media are all that's out there, and what could new experiences look like, and how can we surprise consumers with new experiences. Know your share of model, develop strategies to optimize against your share of model to grow that share. Don't know how to do that, gonna figure it out. And then lastly, make sure that your AI policy is in place. And a policy sounds like a boring word, but I really have experienced in this work that people respond so well to being included in a conversation about what the right way to do things is. It really empowers them. It gives them, the constraints that they need to innovate. And you can't innovate when you're using ChatGPT under your desk and not sure whether that's approved or not, and afraid of getting in trouble. So when you know what you can and cannot do, then suddenly the world opens to you and you start thinking about things in new ways. I think there's ideas bubbling up at companies with junior employees that leadership would never think of, and we're just giving them the keys to access that thinking. So with that, I will stop sharing and open it up for conversation.
Well, thanks for all this, Kate. This is, you're touching on so many issues that I feel like this is like, like so many of these topics, it's just going to be what we're talking about the next few years. And some we've talked about, like actually Ashley Green here from Creative Theory Agency did a wonderful session on access, and one of those things that I appreciate all our guest speakers, but some I just get stuck in my head more than others. And so like that conversation is one that we can't just have one conversation on, right? And same thing with how search is going, and and tying that in, like I hadn't seen that in like basically the same breath of tying that into marketing to bots, right? Because the the behavior of search, you talk about like what's going to stay the same, what isn't, right? Like the behavior of search isn't going anywhere. Like people are still primed to be searching for information, and predictive delivery is never going to get so good that like we're going to be in that like precog Minority Report version of like constantly surfacing things before we want them. And also humans like to search for things. Like we're still the hunters and gatherers who like to go, like even if an algorithm said this like knows exactly what we want to say, no, I found it, right? Like not Amazon, not Google, not some OpenAI algorithm. We're hungry for that agency, and so we'd like to take a few extra steps and do that. Now, what does where do those results come from? That's like, I mean, like billions and billions and billions of dollars of economic impact, like, namely every company that advertises on Google today and optimizes to be on the first so-called page of it, even if the page is an outdated notion. Like all this stuff, like how does this happen in a way that all businesses that rely on Google don't get hurt, right? And so that there isn't that collateral damage, and it's only those who have like the best access in a different way, the financial access to go and like game the algorithms and and sell their product catalog to OpenAI to optimize it better. Like we don't want to be in a place where it's just like the Walmarts are the only one who can afford to essentially rank high in LLM. So you're just bringing up so many great topics, and I sure as hell don't have answers here, but it's great seeing this all together. Not surprisingly, one of the first questions, thanks Paula, comes up on the legal front. And so, one of our upcoming speakers we haven't scheduled yet, but Brooks Marsh, who's often on these calls, and actually we did an impromptu Ask Brooks session in one of our just regular community calls the past couple of weeks. Like she'll be an upcoming speaker. We need more of that, but I don't know if Kate, you want to have like just an initial response to the general question on the legal issues connecting to using this technology, or just where you think that fits into your broader like 2030 vision here.
I'm sure there's someone on the call that has has passed the bar exam and can answer this question better than I can, but I think it depends greatly on what aspect of the technology you're talking about. Certainly in terms of content creation, there are legal issues. Video and image creation has been trained on things that were not sourced properly from across the internet. And so there, in this current day, there is no real understanding of what is the responsibility to of the companies that built those models to be clear about the data that they have put into the training set. So if I generate an image of, I don't know, myself hiding under my desk, and it comes out in the style of an artist whose images were stolen and trained the model, that person has a legal right to, any revenue generated from that content. So there's that. And then there's also the IP question. If I create something, who owns it? And our government, the United States, doesn't have an answer to that. So I think, there's a couple ways in, but there's a lot of confusion because these are very novel technologies and the legal landscape to understand them hasn't been created yet. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah. Other questions or comments for Kate on all this? Are there any? Jason, please.
Yeah, so I've got a question for you about the idea of kind of carving out time to look forward and think about what happens next, right? So I think a lot of people, and I'd be curious to know how your clients sort of think about this, right? They're thinking about AI as a way to make the same stuff that they made before, but do it faster and cheaper. And which it can do, right? It can generate a lot of efficiency for you. And then from there, you sort of have two choices, whether you can sort of take that money off the table, or you can think of it as sort of playing with house money, and you can think about, okay, now how do I use this time and sort of reinvest it to think about how I can make something that hasn't been made before, how I can develop a new format of content, things like that. What's been your experience in terms of how clients are thinking about that and what their sort of willingness is to bet that house money?
Yeah, so great question. I think it's changed between last year and this year. There's a constant evolution in the way that folks are thinking about this. And first I'll say that people are all over the board, right? There's a huge spectrum of readiness, of willingness, of ability to adopt AI. But one of the things that I've noticed this year coming into conversations is that sort of automation stuff, how to do your work better, faster, cheaper, right? As you mentioned, that's becoming kind of table stakes. It's becoming something that they feel like we ought to do this just so that we can manage our bottom line against all the pressures that we have, especially in marketing and agencies, right? Where those pressures are pretty great. But there's a pivot in the conversation when we say, hey, did you ever think about the fact that now it is way easier for you to generate your own software, your own IP, to turn your IP into an AI product that you can take to market, that you can use to differentiate yourself? And that's kind of where the lights start to go on, where it stops being, how do I, use Jasper to do my market, have fewer marketing staff, right? And it becomes, how can I, build on the foundation of these LLMs, a layer of technology that I can call proprietary and take to market for whatever reason that is. And I feel like that's been such a big shift in the last, 6 months that I've seen.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Alexander.
Hi. Oh, you're on mute.
Can AI unmute me? That'd be a good one. Sorry. Great presentation. Thank you. A lot of really interesting stuff. I was wondering if you could riff a little bit more about share of model. I think that's a really interesting concept, and I feel like that really connects with this idea of agents searching the internet on our behalf and agents signaling our intent and having different data signals that we're willing to share through the agent. In terms of like share of model, it kind of invoked this like horrible, scary image of like an arms race of like hacking or like SEO optimization for LLMs, where people are trying to be like, oh, you can get ChatGPT to return you in search results more if you do XYZ, and sort of the same, kind of like SEO optimization all over again. But I don't think it would really work from a technical perspective on models, because they're already trained before they go live. So I'm probably overanalyzing it. But anyway, let me pause and just see if you had any reactions to that.
You sound like me and the thought processes that are going on in my head all the time. But I don't know if I agree with you. I think that there is an entire like new cottage industry of SEO companies, but that are like MEO companies, right? Once somebody cracks how to do that effectively, then I think it's going to be off to the races. And I do think that, I don't know, I'd love to hear from everyone else what they think, but I feel like whenever opportunity springs, there's like 1,000 people there to jump on it, especially because, the traditional media structures are eroding around us. And so everybody's feeling around, like I have in my career, right? Coming from cable television, feeling around for, where is the place where the economy is going to go? Where is the place where business is going to grow? And anytime I see a signal that there's something that's going to bubble up there, I think it's worth thinking about.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Alex. And thanks everyone for raising your hands and make this so easy today. Jay-Z.
Hey, yeah, I love all the trends and seeing how fast everything's going. As I talk to bigger brands, they're like, oh, AI is not for me. Like, I still want to do real, design with real designers. And as I talk to startups, they're like, oh, I'm willing to do AI because I don't have a big team. And the AI is going to kind of replace the need to hire a bigger team. So I guess just for you and this community, like, does the size of the company kind of impact how fast you want to adopt AI?
I think probably. But I also think it's cultural, right? And what level of experimentation lives within the company or is a capability within the company. The thing that I've been thinking about is, there was this whole JP Morgan fiasco where JP Morgan spent tens of millions of dollars developing a financial planner bot trained on all of its data. And when they finally got it into a good space, they tested it against GPT-4, I think, and GPT was just better than their bot that they had created. And so, it's a problem of, did we just decide to throw all of our data into something and hope it magically works, right? Or is there, I think in order to win at this, you have to have the experimentation as part of your culture. You have to have the thought leadership to get you there. And then you also have to have the right technical team to figure out how to do it and do it right. So I will say that like that JP Morgan example, I've used a lot with my clients who are small, much, much, much smaller. To say you can be more nimble. You don't have to invest tens of $millions of dollars. You can just get to a proof of concept with something in a few weeks with a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
And then you can build on it from there. And that's kind of the way to go because the world turns pretty quickly in this space and technologies become obsolete. So if you've had like a 2-year timeline and you've invested tens of millions of dollars, what you end up with at the end could be worse than what people can get off the street for free. So I think that's how I think about it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because, well, I don't know, training a financial data set is very custom. And so if you're not comparing it against what's already out there, it seems like pointless. But yeah, you should be able to know that in the first day. It's not like you have to take a whole year to figure that out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mandy. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how
Good
are
to
you?
see you. Thanks for the presentation. It's so fun. Kate and I met up a couple months ago in real life, in person in New York. It was very fun. I was just thinking more about what you were saying about how, very soon the way we consume media, reading our emails, we won't have to search the same way. If we're planning a trip, we just want AI to do it for us. So, how, as marketers, do you think we can reach consumers? Like if you are a new shampoo brand launching, what's the best way to reach your consumer if they're not like necessarily reading emails and seeing whatever? I read Morning Brew and it's always presented by a sponsor every morning. So if we're not doing that, if we're consuming media differently, if search is changing, like how are brands going to reach consumers? I'm trying to think of it, we talked about, we both come from the world of entertainment and cable has drastically changed. And so I'm just trying to think of like, what's the best way to reach consumers in the future? And
Yeah.
if you don't, I don't know if you have an answer, but.
Well, I
But
have some answers. And I think we'll have to see because, things are going to start changing, but not to toot our own horn, but I feel like entertainment is a great space because lo and behold, like streaming all has advertising now.
mhm.
So, the gone are the days of the true SVOD and now it's all AVOD, right? And so, you have to look at entertainment. You have to look at your creators' content. Those are opportunities for brands. And, I think that there's frankly so many tools coming out that are doing highly advanced media mix modeling. And I think that as those become more sophisticated, the media mix is going to have to change. And maybe there will be new channels that we'll use to reach consumers that we haven't thought of before. Or maybe, if you are a shampoo brand, you'll create a synthetic experience about your hair care based on, trends that you've been following or data that you've been collecting from your key audience. So I don't know. I think everything's going to shift, but for me, it's really about keeping abreast of it so that you are thinking ahead, so that you are onboarding that media mix modeling tool, that you are, running predictive analytics against your spend, and that you're thinking about the best way to get in front of the eyeballs that are slowly leaving screens.
Makes sense.
Hey, thanks, Mandy. And so Dax, who's working with us on some international expansion of Marketers Guild, so we can actually do this in some other time zones. And so welcome to the call, Dax.
Thank you so much, and a great session, Kate. Thanks for the insights. So I want to ask you a question because we are kind of in a similar space in terms of what you are building, except that we are focusing more on Southeast Asia and India. You mentioned about 3 or 4 services in terms of your business model, and one of them was tech solutions. So one of the challenges that we are facing within the region is a lot of times when we are actually talking to marketers are not necessarily the decision makers themselves, when it comes to implementing the tech solutions. And from my experience, a lot of times I feel that, I hate saying this, but I'm kind of wasting my time by not talking to the business owner or the chief driver or in terms of decision making. So what is working for you specifically in terms of the service offerings that you have, and how you're actually addressing those challenges? Are you really talking to CMOs themselves or the tech, or the business owners?
Yeah, great question. What I found that works for me and I've been doing this business for under a year, so I don't have too many experiences under my belt to like be able to give you a trend, right? But what has worked for me is working directly with CMO, because they're in that C-suite conversation and helping them to write their strategy with the use cases they've identified, with the cost benefit analysis, and with all of the talking points that they need to have in their pocket to win in that conversation, to win the support of the CTO and the CEO. That I think is the way to do it. It's a strategy approach. But because I'm a strategist, that's just what comes naturally to me. I think there's probably other ways to do it.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you. I want to connect and learn more about what you're doing. Oh, look at this cat.
Kroom's cat wants to join, but before Kroom's cat joins, let's hear from Jean, and then we'll go to Kroom and cat. Jean. Or maybe the cat gets to go first. So,
No, sorry. I was trying to find my unmute button. I don't really have a fully formed thought here, but I'm not sure I buy into the whole share of model thing. We work with I work for a creative automation company, and many of the clients we work with want nothing to do with AI because of the legal ramifications, particularly all the financial firms we work with. And even a lot of the media companies like NBC, they want nothing to do with AI currently because of the copyright implications.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, to me, it seems like it's not going to give you real time information about how your brand is doing within the marketplace within a marketing campaign. And I think that there's better tools out there currently, like blueocean.ai, which is a real-time pulse on how your brand is doing using 1,200 different data points. Full disclosure, I don't work for Blue Ocean, but I have used their solution in the past for other brands. And to me, that seems like a more relevant way as a marketer to leverage what's happening in the market in real time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think today that's absolutely correct. I do think that this is an emerging concept. And because it just rings so true for so many people that I talk to, that's why I keep having it in the forefront to think about, experiment, and figure out how it does play into eventually the share of voice modeling process that Blue Ocean would do. Because it could be that it just becomes a component piece. But what I'd love to do is have the jellyfish team that's been working on this come and talk in a little bit more detail, because I've just heard about it. I haven't even been taken through. I've just, read about it. And I think that we would really benefit from having them come in and sort of take us through their thinking and make that and prove it out to you.
Well, Kate,
Yeah,
let's
I'd love to hear it. I think it
Yeah.
seems to me like a melding of like what they want to do and what Blue Ocean does would be like the perfect solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and let's get them in there, get them in here as soon as they're ready. So,
Cool.
Kroom, go for it.
Hey, everybody, and thanks for having me. What a great forum, Kate. Nice to meet you, and thank you for your presentation. I'm on the healthcare side, and I've got a basket of maybe 10 or so healthcare startup CEOs that I'm working with, and each of them would really love to hear your presentation. And I'm wondering if we could, potentially use that as a hook to get meetings with, my clients, but also I have a list of about 300 other CEOs that are, in the startup phase. But I could see us trying to go to market, with your point of view, to really open the door to cross sell and to get other strategy services in there. And then I have an engagement with a very large pharma company that has that is experimenting with AI, and they're probably stumbling around. But everybody wants to see how to do more with less. But it'd be nice to be on the right side of the joystick, when the scopes are signed. But maybe we could catch up later. But I would be curious, and some people just hate health. I get it. But if you have any interest in coming over to, the health side of things, maybe we could chat. It's at a good moment.
Yeah, let's connect offline. Are you in the Slack group?
I believe so.
Okay, I'll find you.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, right on time. This is just love the questions that have been coming through here, and yeah, Kate, I think you've sparked a lot that we can continue to go back to in the months ahead. So as there are things that you figure out relating to any of these areas, I know you'll be visible here, but yeah, we can revisit these and some of the issues that fellow speakers like Paul and Ashley and others here have been bringing up. So thank you, Kate. Tomorrow we do have a special edition with Augie Studio. That'll be tomorrow at noon. Well, also for anyone who's near White Plains, New York, Westchester County, we'll have an event with them next week. We've got a special startup showcase where we're a very rare outside group invited to join Progress Partners, and most of these are very deep in like AI and marketing. So just check the event calendar, check the newsletter. If you haven't seen it yet today, you'll see links to all these events. Yeah, thanks again, Kate. Thanks again, everyone who participated. Looking forward to see you, maybe some of you tomorrow, next week, in person, virtual, all kinds of things. So thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.